I think if we're trying to really understand what's happening in technology right now, IBM is such an interesting one because you're a software vendor, you're a consultant for tech implementations, and you yourself are a massive company that uses all these technologies. So you're able to kind of, hit each one of these buckets. And I have to listen to a lot of earnings calls, and IBM is one of my favorite because you touch all these buckets. So maybe to kick off, could you tell us a bit about how you spend your time at IBM and some of the, tech implementations that have made a difference for you?
Great, Brody. Yes, and I loved even the setup that Ryan did. So for IBM, our strategy is hybrid cloud and AI. And so within our own, I would call it enterprise transformation and operations, we really have the opportunity to bring to life, as you said, our software and a lot of our technology, and actually we call it client zero. So you think of us as being the kind of alpha, beta, almost sandbox for our teams to actually use our own AI capabilities and strategic partnership capabilities to truly transform and reimagine how work is going to be done in this very exciting digital AI era.
Awesome. So I hear from a lot of folks that, hey, our board, our C-suite, they want us to do some AI projects. We might have an earmarked budget if we're lucky. What should they not be doing?
I think, at this particular moment in time, I think companies are really driving an agenda that says, what is the ROI? And the conversation that we've been having inside of IBM and also with a lot of our clients is, I think we've been experimenting. We've been looking, obviously, for ways to engage on transforming end-to-end workflow, transforming a lot of our operation teams, whether you're in procurement, whether you're in HR, whether you're in IT. But I honestly think that for us and our conversation with our board, it's like, how do you really make an impact? How do you truly transform and take advantage of the technology and innovation?
Are there specific ways that you've implemented? It doesn't have to be just Gen AI. Maybe it's just a separate software that really has made a difference that you can kind of share with us that really did make a difference for you?
Yeah, I think where we've seen the biggest opportunity and impact has been where we've had three main use cases that brings to life, I think, actually how we run the whole company. So the three use cases, I think, that transcends, any industry, any client experience. Firstly, it's client support. It's how do you service both for us, our own internal IBM employees, and also how do we actually engage with our clients. And when we look at it, the second area that we've come in with is digital labor. How can we kind of bring to life the opportunity for all of us to have more valuable roles, more engaging roles, because we actually use a digital assistant to bring to life our data and then allow us to use our skills and our capabilities to really drive the outcomes. And then finally, for me, we've done a lot on IT modernization. The agenda for me has been one where we actually, how can we make our development team much more productive and use, for us, Watson Code Assistant to really transform how we actually generate. And Brody, it's kind of like, I would call it three main, very definitive outcomes we want to make. Firstly, yes, it's cost efficiency and effectiveness. It's how do you make yourself more productive. But I think it's also about speed. I think all of us recognize that on every business that we're in, we want to be able to move faster. We want to reduce our cycle time. And then I think for us, it's also been about the experience. How do we transform the user experience for our clients, for our partners, and for our employees?
Nice. Those three use cases you laid out, is this mostly you're still experimenting with it in folks internally, or is it really being used in production at this point?
Used in production with varying degrees of maturity. Mm-hmm. So we kind of led our charge actually in our HR domain. So think about it from hiring right the way through to retiring, and every kind of element of how we engage with our IBM employee. So whether that is just helping you get on board, becoming a new employee to IBM, right the way through engaging on how do we actually promote someone, what training and education and skills do they need, and how do we actually bring to life for us what we call Ask HR, which was really enabling us to have all 250,000 IBMers kind of become really productive and actually elevating our HR teams to truly higher value, perhaps skills, talent, recruiting, and allowing us each day to self-service. And the thing we love the most about it, Brody, is it's like available to you 24/7, and it allows you to get really fast responses. So now 94% of queries, questions that we all have, whether you're an employee right the way through to our senior leadership team, are actually resolved and actually closed out by the technology.
We hear a lot of far-flung anxieties about AI. I think one of the more immediate ones is, man, is this LLM going to suck up all my enterprise data? Is it going to, how do I trust this thing? How do you think people should think about that risk?
Well, I think for us, data privacy, and I think for a lot of your clients that are here today, is clearly about elements of having enterprise trust and protecting in all aspects of your clients' insights and data that you quite often are engaged with. For me, I think what we've done a really good job on is the data, whether it's in the case of finance, in procurement, and HR, which is within my shared services team, or whether it's our clients' data, the data belongs to the source. And so we are able to give that capability to allow our teams to actually use AI, but use it in a very safe and trusted and data-driven and governed environment, which makes us feel very, very secure and allows us also to scale across the enterprise.
You figure that companies need that, some kind of, additional governance layer, additional software vendor in between them and the, large language model makers for an extra element of security?
Yeah, I think that makes the enterprise scale discussion. And of course, we are a global company, so some of the opportunities that we see coming at us as regulation on data privacy are very different across, even here in the US, across different states, but definitely across different countries. And I think this allows us to have a secure enterprise solution, and it allows us also to have a solution that we can use and customize dependent on what regulations are required.
A lot of companies I've covered have had the issue of, you buy a couple companies, you make acquisitions. God, now we have different tech stacks, super inefficient. IBM has managed to acquire quite a few companies recently. I mean, HashiCorp was just a couple months ago, $6 billion. How have you approached integrating acquisitions without the, all feared tech debt?
So I think, there's no what I would call AI without data, and I think data is the foundation of how we actually have really looked at how we do acquisitions going forward, Brody. So you're right, we kicked off the year with Aptio. We're kind of in the throes now of obviously Software AG, and next up will be HashiCorp. And what we really want to do there is obviously get the capability to bring their data into our environment and to drive honestly onto one single operating platform. We use SAP as our backbone for a lot of our record to report. And so really that's our fundamental opportunity, is how do we take that data set that we've defined, bring it to life inside the platform, and then we, for ours inside of IBM, have then embedded Watson X to be the AI driving force. And I have to say it's making us much faster and more agile at being able to do acquisitions.
When you acquire a company, is there a certain time frame where you say, hey, once we hit, I don't know, a year or two, the software's got to be standardized?
Yeah, I mean, that's really one of the things we have inside of IBM leaned in on, is going with enterprise strategic partnerships on the technology leadership that they have. So we are big on clearly on Salesforce for what we would say our engagement with our sellers and our ecosystem, right the way through to Adobe in our marketing space, Brody. And really, that's the North Star. The North Star would be for us to use these platforms for today's revenue, and then obviously for revenue growth through acquisition moving forward.
How does it work for you when you're bringing in the generative tools? I mean, is it pretty, you tell the employees, hey, you could use whichever model you want on this? Do you have three that you say, this is what we're locked in on?
Well, actually, we wanted to get our people really excited about AI. And so last July, we actually created what we called a What's Next Challenge, which was a week-long rally where we let people kind of play in the sandbox. We had about 150,000 employees sharing with us what would they like to spend their time on and where would they like to use AI to transform how work gets done in their role day to day. And it gave us a great experience. It gave us the opportunity to stress our systems.
Yeah, right.
It also gave us a chance to see what actually people really wanted to work on and what they wanted to engage with. So that we're now a year later. We're about to do another one in the middle of July. We're more mature. We're a little more, I would say, driven by the outcomes that we've achieved. And we're also seeing in areas now where people are truly elevating and changing the roles that they do and the skills that they want. So we're going to give them more training and education on how they can bring AI to life.
I can imagine the things people don't want to do. What were the tasks you found that people didn't want AI to come help them with or didn't want to replace?
I think that the discussion is really on the skills and the values. So I think no one was debating in any of my teams or even across all of IBM that there are transactions today, perhaps some areas for complexity today, and handoffs and that we were running the corporation on. So they were really looking for how can I use AI to really make myself more productive and elevate a day in my life to higher value. So that has been one of our conversations. And in our shared services team, we actually kind of decided to sort of rebrand ourselves as growth enablers. So how can we start thinking about how can the teams that today support the IBM enterprise, how can they think of ways of actually helping to think about ways of taking out pain points, being more productive, driving revenue growth, and then obviously for us another one of our strategies is enabling free cash flow. So how can we use technology to really deliver those outcomes?
Is there one technology you've used that you said, wow, this one really helped us, drive these financial outcomes?
Yeah, so for us, we've managed to actually replicate and scale using Watson Discovery and Watson Assist across nearly all of our domains. A big lift was on our starting point, which was, as I mentioned, HR. But we were able then, earlier this year, to take that same approach in our IT team. So how do we support our entire IT stack? And that was done within 90 days. So we went from co-creating to launching a minimal viable product, to having it be able to successfully actually deliver outcomes in 90 days and with an accuracy of about 70%. And so the second step that it's given us is the chance now to sort of build on that. And now here we are 6 months later, that's giving us an accuracy of about 85%. And Brody, the reason why it's important is technology is only one part of the AI agenda. I think behavior and getting people to really want to engage is going to be an absolute critical success factor.
And, probably harder. I mean, we all know, like at a workplace, people's preferred tools based on when they joined usually.
Yes.
Because they update things, they don't change. I mean, how are you doing change management in this era?
I think it's honestly, it's exciting when you see some of our teams embrace this and they want to share their experience, and they actually have an incredible, I would say, way to engage their teams. We've looked at areas that perhaps were a little more resistant to change or perhaps didn't see a role for AI to play in their domain. And we then used that as a way to actually shine a really big light on what we are calling the team's productivity catalysts. Where are teams showing up using AI? And actually what we're seeing on those teams, Brody, is, as I mentioned, the experience is really important, and their engagement in their net promoter score is actually significantly higher when they've actually deployed a capability and sort of, I would say, looked for new ways to reimagine the workflow that they're actually generating each and every day.
So you're saying, the folks or divisions who are maybe a little more hesitant, you showed them, hey, check out your colleague over here who got more efficient. Isn't that cool?
Isn't that cool? And then, honestly, you led the conversation on outcomes.
Yeah.
So share the outcomes, share the opportunity, and then share the value that you can bring when you can free up time for your people to spend on really, I would say, more exciting, engaging roles.
Which job functions have you, seen the most time saving, labor saving?
So maybe just three areas I would chat about within my own domain. So IT, we've made a big difference on how we run our own internal CIO operations. Also in procurement. So our procurement team were really leaning in on, they really wanted to be involved in strategic sourcing, getting the best possible price, getting the deal at the right price at the right time, and less on PO placement and less, honestly, on dealing with invoice queries and questions. So we've probably made the most productive opportunities in those three areas. And these are teams that are very driven and determined, also to upskill themselves. So they wanted to learn about how they can become skilled on using data and AI to perform their day-to-day roles.
So a lot of us in this room, whether journalists or investors, we hear a lot of companies tell us, we've implemented this technology. You see a lot of companies, you know kind of how to suss out who's really doing things. How many companies at this point do you think are really using Gen AI versus they're still in that kind of proof of concept phase?
I think, Brody, there's a significant bell curve.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of companies are definitely experimenting. I think some of the CIOs and CFOs of companies are questioning the ROI, and then they're driving an agenda that said, show me the impact that I can bring, and how do I derive this at enterprise scale? But there's some that are more advanced, and there are others that I think are just starting on the journey. And of course, that is the exciting opportunity. But I don't think anyone's not asking the question of where should I engage on AI.
The big trendy, discussion topic among software investors right now is Gen AI eating into traditional software budgets, right? Are you not expanding your sales force because you're expanding Gen AI? I'm not asking you to disclose how you're spending money at IBM necessarily, but do you think that across the industry is a fair read?
I think that from my own experience, I think it's an and world. I think it's going with industry leadership in terms of platform capabilities, and AI then actually enhances your ability to drive even more productivity and I would say even better experience. So that would be where I see the journey at this point in time for us and for a lot of our clients.
Gotcha. So yeah, additive, it kind of comes together. Where are you all at on remote work these days?
We are all in on being back together. We see that as a big advantage to being able to bring a lot of our teams together in our vibrant communities. I was just mentioning to you that we were really excited about our new home in New York City, which will be in the middle of July. But for us, this has been one of those journeys where we were really very enabled with our technology when we had to go remote. But no, we've been back, and we're back allowing our teams to co-create, to come together with their teammates, and to also then engage with our clients.
Nice. Hardware's cool again. Semiconductors are up, server companies, Dell is, tripled in value this year. Are you all going out and fighting for NVIDIA chips, or are you able to, use your internal servers mostly?
We are always engaged in both. So we're engaged in our own internal capabilities, and then also our strategic partnerships, which enable us obviously to continue to grow and develop.